Over to Rich Nelson, the Director of Research. And Rich, what do you got for us here?
So let's take a quick look here at the first thing we can point out with this whole issue right now on the planning. So average guess right now out by Reuters Newswire release is for a 45% planning pace, 45% complete. And of course you can tell this is not only blowing the doors off of all the previous 5 years, but this is actually would be a record as of today's date. Something else of interest in terms of last week, that would represent a 26% increase in 1 week. So that would actually be a record for last week's planning. However, that would not be a record 1 week gain. That was actually posted in 2003 with a 36% increase. So typically, actually right now and actually even next week are the 2 big weeks where we're typically doing most of our corn planting. So I just want to point out that this is going to be a record if we come up with 45%. That'd be a record as of last week, so a record only for last week here. Let's get back to something kind of more important that we are kind of watching. I want to throw this confusing chart up here once again, pointing out in terms of the bottom line. The bottom line right here, we have where we are compared to the normal pace in terms of when we reach that 50% threshold. And as of right now, we might hypothetically cross that threshold as early as Wednesday, which would be a full 7 days earlier than we normally would. And if that happens, you've got as much as, in this line right here, shows about a 7 to 8% increase over trend yield. So last week we said we're probably at about a 4-day better than normal pace. Right now we're going to, like I said, maybe cross that 50% threshold on Wednesday, which would be a full 7 days ahead of normal. And that will be an amazing yield. So at this point, we're throwing up some incredibly huge numbers in terms of yield potential. As we said, these are potentials. We're not going to trade this right now, and we're not going to make recommendations based on these ideas right now because it's still quite early in the planting season here. The other question comes up, well, how are we doing compared to acres? So we said there's generally a pretty good relationship between early planting and good yields. Well, how about this acres? Just because corn goes in the ground earlier than usual, does that mean we're going to plant more corn acres? It generally kind of does, but it's not as sweet as the other one here. As this other chart showed, we've got, I believe, about 14 of the past 15 years as far as a early planting good yield scenario. I believe this is about 10 out of the past 15 years. Early planting means more corn acres. So generally there's a trend for it, but it's not as perfect as the other one here.
Rich, can you go back to that just to kind of see how many acres it does equate to?
So
maybe less than 1 million?
That's about right here. Just a little bit more than probably about 200,000 or so.
Okay.
So we already know where we're at right now. We're going to hit this 50% mark. Today's report is going to look fantastic. Well, how about from here on out? 6-10-day forecast shows we have above normal precip. We have good rains coming Thursday through Saturday this week, and then another good rain early next week. And of course, the 6 to 10 day shows we've got good rains for everybody lined up for early next week. 8 to 14, pointing out for late next week, has most of the eastern corn belt in this above normal precip. So we've done a great job planting. What's in the ground is going to grow great. However, we're going to have some stalling problems here with the remainder of corn planting here. As far as the other fundamental side for soybeans, we're going to have a report out today on the very first one for soybean planting. This is still very, very early in the season for soybeans. In fact, this will be the first time they actually report on this, I want to say, in about 5 to 7 years. We aren't even thinking about soybean planting at this time of the year normally here. So in terms of this, I've got plugged in here $5. It doesn't really matter what they have, what they're going to tell us here. It's still going to be pretty darn early here. Another thing we're going to point out is the fact that we've done a great job of doing some pre-harvest booking of new crop soybeans by China. And in this nice little bar here, you can show we're doing a pretty good pace, almost double last year. This is not a record pre-harvest booking yet. They've done quite a bit better in the previous few years. But we did want to make the point that this is starting to change some people's minds, that maybe some of these export sales numbers we're all kind of making guesses on for new crop, maybe a little too low. Maybe we're going to have to bump those up a little bit here. And then it might also be one of the reasons why we're seeing the soybean market kind of supported, where most of the news has been straight out bearish for quite some time. So we're not going to say that we're going to change everything in here just yet, but this is maybe one reason why we're doing a pretty good job at keeping these prices supported in the near term here.